I never thought I'd wake up in the body of the man who ruined my life, staring at my own face in the mirror, his smug grin frozen on my lips. But there I was. Richard Hale's 6'3" frame draped over my 5'4" curves like a bad joke from hell, and the first words out of this stolen mouth were, "Time to burn it all down." Yesterday, I'd been Ella Voss, the scapegoat junior analyst who'd taken the fall for his multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. Today, I was him, and the revenge tasted like the bourbon he kept in his desk drawer, sharp, expensive, and impossible to spit out. The fluorescent hum of the open-plan office on the 47th floor of Hale and Associates Financial had been my lullaby for 5 years. Relentless drone that masked the quiet desperation of climbing the ladder in New York City's cutthroat finance world. I was Ella Voss, 32, with a Wharton MBA gathering dust under student loans and a corner desk that overlooked nothing but the gray slab of the building next door. Richard Hale, the CFO, was the sun around which we all orbited, charismatic, silver fox handsome, with a voice like aged scotch that could sell ice to penguins in a blizzard. He was the one who'd handpicked me from a stack of resumes, mentored me through late-night audits, and whispered promises of partnership over candlelit dinners at Per Se. "You're my secret weapon, Ella," he'd say, his hand lingering just a beat too long on my knee under the table. I believed him. God, did I believe him? It started unraveling 6 months ago, in the blistering heat of a July board meeting. The Kpis, key performance indicators, were our Bible. The metrics that justified bonuses, promotions, and the occasional corner office. Mine were pristine. I'd flagged irregularities in the offshore accounts, anomalies that screamed fraud if you squinted hard enough. But Richard? His numbers were a house of cards, propped up by creative accounting that funneled client funds into his personal Cayman slush fund. I knew because I'd helped build it, reluctantly, at first, as harmless adjustments to keep the quarter green. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, he called me into his office, the door clicking shut like a guillotine. "Ella, sweetheart," he said, leaning back in his leather throne, fingers steepled like a televangelist. "We've got a problem. The board's sniffing around. If they dig, it'll look bad for both of us." His eyes, those piercing blue lasers, softened with feigned regret. "But you're smart. You can fix this. Retroactively tweak the KPIs. Make it look like a clerical error on your end. I'll protect you. Hell, I'll promote you." I should have walked out. Should have blown the whistle to the SEC right then. Consequences be damned. But betrayal has a way of creeping up like fog off the Hudson, slow, insidious, until you're soaked and can't remember dry. Richard wasn't just my boss. He was the man who'd filled the void left by my father's abandonment, the one who'd made me feel seen in a city that chewed up dreamers like bubblegum. So I did it. I logged into the system at 2 a.m., my hands shaking as I backdated entries, shifting the blame from his vanity projects to my oversight. It was a mistake I'd bear like a scarlet letter, a felony fraud charge waiting to pounce if anyone connected the dots. The fallout hit like a freight train derailing in Penn Station. 2 weeks later, the auditors descended FBI plants. It turned out, tipped off by a disgruntled VP with a grudge. Richard played the shocked patriarch, his face a mask of righteous indignation as he testified before the board. Ella Voss manipulated the figures. I trusted her implicitly, and she betrayed us all. The video of his press conference went viral. Him, dapper in a Brooks Brothers suit, decrying the erosion of ethics in young professionals. My apartment was raided at dawn. Agents in windbreakers cuffing me in front of my nosy super, who live-tweeted the whole spectacle. White-collar witch hunt, the headline screamed, but the subtext was clear. I was the fall girl, the ambitious millennial who'd sold out for a shot at the big leagues. Prison was a special kind of hell, Rikers, temporary holding for white-collar types like me, but no less soul-crushing. The air smelled of bleach and regret. The bunks sagged under the weight of women who'd trusted the wrong men. I spent nights staring at the cinderblock ceiling, replaying Richard's betrayal in high-def, the way he'd ghosted my calls post-arrest, the LinkedIn update promoting his interim COO to full-time while I rotted. But the real gut punch came in a smuggled contraband phone call from my lawyer, the clause buried in my employment contract, a forgotten relic from my onboarding, triggered by material misrepresentation of financial data. It wasn't just jail time. It voided my equity shares, liquidated my 401k, and saddled me with restitution that would beggar me for life. Richard had retroactively changed the Kpis to trigger it deliberately, maliciously, ensuring I'd never rise from the ashes. That's when the swap happened. Not in some cosmic bolt of lightning, but in the sterile glow of a black site lab, courtesy of a shadowy DARPA-funded neurotech startup Richard had invested in on the sly. Body transference, they called it, a prototype for executive empathy training, swapping consciousnesses for 48 hours to foster understanding between classes. Richard, ever the innovator, volunteered as a beta tester during my pre-trial psych eval, posing as a grieving mentor seeking closure. They hooked us up in adjacent pods, electrodes humming like angry bees, and for a split second, as the world dissolved into static, I locked eyes with him across the glass. His smirk said it all. Gotcha one last time. I woke up gasping, my chest heaving under a starched Oxford shirt, the scent of his Creed cologne choking me. The mirror in the recovery room showed Richard's face, strong jaw, salt and pepper hair, the faint scar from that yachting accident in the Hamptons he'd bragged about. My body, his body now, lounged in the next pod, my own hazel eyes fluttering open with confusion. The techs, oblivious, chalked it up to residual disorientation. But I knew. The swap hadn't reversed. I was trapped in him, and he in me, with 36 hours on the clock before the neural anchors reset. Panic clawed at my throat, but so did something darker, opportunity. Richard's life was a vault of secrets, encrypted drives in his penthouse safe, mistresses on speed dial, and a Rolodex of politicians who'd owe him favors. If I played this right, I could dismantle him brick by brick. First, though, survival. I slipped out of the lab in his tailored slacks, flashing his ID at the security desk, my voice a gravelly baritone that commanded doors to open. The city blurred past in his chauffeured Escalade, Times Square's billboards hawking crypto scams, hot dog vendors hawking dreams, and for the first time, I felt the raw power of being him. Untouchable. Until I wasn't. Back at his my penthouse overlooking Central Park, the doorman nodded deferentially, and the elevator whispered me to the 60th floor. The place was a monument to excess, Warhol prints on the walls, a bar stocked with single malt unicorns, and a king-sized bed where I'd once imagined us tangled in sheets, not schemes. I raided the safe first, combination his wedding anniversary, the one to the wife he'd cheated on with me, uncovering flash drives labeled contingency. One held the smoking gun, emails proving he'd orchestrated the KPI fudge, framing me to cover his tracks. The other? A dossier et la voce. Expendable asset, with notes on how to neutralize whistleblowers like me. Betrayal doesn't get deeper than that. It's a knife twisted in the gut, salted with the realization that every "I love you" was a ledger entry. But power corrupts fast, even borrowed. As Richard and me, he was probably clawing at the walls of that holding cell, demanding his body back. I had to move quick. A call to his assistant, me,
Now.
in his voice, canceled his afternoon meetings, citing migraine.
Then.
Deeper into the contingency files, the hidden clause in the company's bylaws, one he'd buried during a merger. It allowed the CFO to invoke emergency powers, liquidating assets if fiduciary peril loomed. Ironic, isn't it? The same forgetfulness that doomed me could doom him. With a few keystrokes on his laptop, I initiated a audit trail anonymous. Of course, flagging his slush fund to the IRS. Controversial? Hell yes. Destroying evidence that could exonerate me? Maybe. But revenge isn't clean. It's a blood sport with boardroom rules. Night fell like a velvet curtain, the city lights winking conspiratorially. I poured his bourbon, neat, and toasted to the woman I'd been, fierce,
Foolish Cheya.
who'd loved too hard and trusted too deep. Tomorrow, the real fun began, infiltrating his inner circle, sowing doubt among the board, turning his empire into quicksand. But as the liquor burned, a whisper of doubt crept in. What if the swap stuck? What if I became him, the monster I despised? The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly. 24 hours left. Sleep came fitful, haunted by dreams of my own face screaming silently across a void. Dawn broke over the skyline like a guilty conscience, painting the penthouse in hues of bruised purple and gold. I dressed in Richard's closet, a Zegna's suit that fit like a second skin. Too broad in the shoulders, but empowering in its armor-like crispness, and descended to the Hale and Associates lobby, where sycophants parted like the Red Sea. Morning, Mr. Hale, cooed the receptionist, batting lashes I'd once envied. I nodded curtly, suppressing the urge to spit that this shell of a man had destroyed lives for sport. My first stop, the executive washroom, where I practiced his gait in the marble echo, confident strides, a slight swagger born of boardroom conquests. The man in the mirror wasn't me, but he'd do. The boardroom was a coliseum of egos, 12 graying titans in Hermes ties nursing espressos from bone china cups. I took my seat at the head, Richard's throne, and launched into the agenda with his patented blend of charm and steel. Gentlemen and Lydia, I added with a wink that made her flush. We're sailing smooth, but I've got wind of regulatory headwinds. Time to batten down. Murmurs rippled. They trusted him implicitly, blind to the rot. Midway through, my phone buzzed, a block number. Heart slamming, I excused myself to the hall, answering in a hush.
Ella?
It was me, my voice, thin and frantic, laced with Richard's polished vowels. What the fuck have you done? Get me out of here. The feds are circling. They'll trace it back. Laughter bubbled up, low and foreign in this throat. Richard, darling, it's Ella. Or should I say, the expendable asset? Enjoy Riker's hospitality. Think of it as character building. You bitch, he hissed, the word twisting my own timbre into venom. Swap back now, or I'll bury you deeper. I own the judges, the press. You owned me. I cut in, voice steady as a surgeon's scalpel. Remember the Kpis? That clause you forgot?
Tick-tock.
Richie. I've already lit the fuse.
Click.
The line went dead, but the thrill lingered, electric as a live wire. Controversial? Threatening a man from his own body. In the Me Too era, it skirted every HR seminar I'd endured. But power imbalances demand drastic rebalancing, and desperation is the mother of innovation. Back in the meeting, I pivoted to the real play, proposing a restructuring. With emergency powers invoked, via that buried bylaw, I'd liquidate non-core assets, funneling proceeds into a compliance fund that, in truth, would expose his embezzlement. The board lapped it up, clapping like seals at a TED Talk. Lydia, the lone woman among them, lingered after, her eyes sharp. Richard, this feels aggressive. Ella's trial starts next week, any blowback. I leaned in, channeling his flirtation like a weapon. Blowbacks for amateurs. LYD. Trust me, this saves us all. She nodded, but doubt flickered. Secrets have a way of seeping through cracks, and Lydia had her own, an affair with Richard. I discovered in the safe's love letters. Solidarity among the betrayed? Or just another pawn? Lunch was power networking at the Palm, where stakes arrived rarer than ethics and deals were sealed with backslaps. Seated with Senator Hargrove, a paunchy relic from Albany with a taste for kickbacks, I probed delicately. Heard whispers about boss's case. Smells fishy. Hargrove chewed thoughtfully. Steak juice dribbling. Fishy? Girl's guilty as sin. But yeah. Hale pulled strings, wanted her quiet. My fork paused midair. Confirmation. Straight from the horse's corrupt mouth. I pressed. And if new evidence surfaced?
Say.
From the inside, he chuckled, wiping his chin. Then we'd talk. But careful. Hale, you're playing with fire. The implication hung. Switch sides, or burn. I paid the bill with Richard's Amex Black, tipping lavishly, and slipped out into the midday bustle of Fifth Avenue. Tourists snapped selfies with the Flatiron Building. I snapped mental Polaroids of every vulnerability. Next, his mistresses. A quick Uber to the Upper East Side, where Chloe, the 25-year-old model/influencer, lounged in a Soho loft paid for by his consulting fees. She answered the door in yoga pants and suspicion, her Botox-smooth brow furrowing. Richie, you're early, and what's with the urgency? I stepped inside, the scent of patchouli and privilege assaulting me. Chloe, we need to talk. About the money trail. Her eyes widened. She knew. Turns out, Richard had promised her a trust fund, funded by the same slush he'd pinned on me. He said it was clean, she whispered, tears smearing mascara. But if it comes out, it will, I said softly, hating how his timbre made me sound paternal. Unless you help. Testify. The truth sets you free, and maybe nets you a settlement. She hesitated, then nodded, the decision cracking her facade. Controversial again, leveraging vulnerability, turning lovers into liabilities. But in the Game of Thrones that is Wall Street, mercy is just another word for weakness. Afternoon bled into chaos. Alerts pinged on Richard's phone, IRS inquiries, board emails questioning the restructuring. In my body, he was raging voicemails from Rikers, slurred with rage. You'll regret this. You crazy cunt. I made you. Each one fueled the fire. But cracks formed. Physically, his body rebelled, migraines from the neural strain, a tremor in my borrowed hands. Emotionally, glimpses of him seeped in, flashes of a lonely boy from Queens, clawing to the top, justifying every cut corner. Was he a monster? Or just a man molded by the machine? Empathy is a luxury I couldn't afford. Not with a clock at 12 hours. Evening found me at his club. The Pinnacle. A wood-paneled sanctum where deals died and were reborn over cigars. There, nursing a Macallan.
I kornet Victor Lang.
The external auditor who'd signed off on the fraud.
Bik, idraulat.
Fancy a chat about those KPIs? He paled. Scotch sloshing. Lang was in deep, paid off with stock tips, but guilt gnawed him. A recovering addict chasing redemption. Richard.
It was a mistake.
Ella didn't deserve. No, I agreed. Voice like ice.
She didn't.
But you can fix it. Resign tomorrow. With a full confession. Or I leak your gambling debts. Extortion. Plain and simple, gray area sleaze that mirrored his own sins. He crumpled, agreeing in a whisper. As I left, the doorman's salute felt hollow. The city, once my dream, now a labyrinth of lies. Back home, the penthouse loomed empty, save for a delivery, flowers from Lydia, with a note, "We need to talk."
Elle. Paranoia spiked.
Was she onto me? Or him? I barricaded the door. Laptop glowing with final preparations, a dead man's switch email to the DOJ. Auto-sending the evidence at swap reset. Sleep evaded me, body aching as if rejecting its thief. In the witching hour, I wept Richard's tears. Hot and unfamiliar for the girl I'd been. Betrayed not just by him, but by my own ambition. Revenge was a siren song. Seductive and damning. Dawn approached. The reset imminent. Would I wake as myself? Or forever his ghost? The first light of day sliced through the blinds like Judgment Day. And I jolted awake in Richard's bed. Sheets tangled around legs that weren't mine. The clock read 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes to reset. My heart, his heart, thundered as I stumbled to the en suite, splashing water on a face that stared back with accusation. "Come on," I muttered in his baritone. "Give it back." But the neural hum was silent, the world stubbornly solid.
No swap.
No reversal. I was him. Permanently. The text glitch sealing my fate in a cosmic fuck you. Panic morphed to purpose. If I was stuck, so was he, trapped in my body, facing trial as Ella Voss, the fraudster. The irony was poetic. He'd retroactively changed the KPIs to bury me. Now fate had rewritten the script. A quick scan of news alerts confirmed it. CFO Hale missing amid scandal. Junior analyst Voss to plead guilty. Richard in me was crumbling. His silver tongue useless in my slight frame. Good. Let him taste the cage. But victory soured fast. A pounding at the door. FBI. Badges flashing like bad omens. Mr.
Hale.
We need to talk about your associate's confession.
Victor Lang had flipped.
His resignation letter a grenade lobbed into the headlines. They hauled me downtown. Cuffs chafing wrists that had signed multimillion deals. In the interrogation room, fluorescent buzz mocking me. Agent Ramirez, a no-nonsense Latina with eyes like steel, leaned in. Your girl's singing.
Hale.
KPIs. The clause. The whole play. But here's the twist. Forensics show you initiated the changes. Not her. My blood ran cold. The dead man's switch? No. I'd sent it from his accounts.
Sloppy.
Or was it? Ramirez slid photos across the table. My Ella's face. tear-streaked in holding, but with Richard's calculating glint. Voss claims you swapped. Some sci-fi bullshit. But if it's true, she trailed off, implying deals, immunity. Controversial crossroads. Rat out the impossible truth. Or double down as the villain.
Chose-trousse.
Spilling the swap in halting detail, the lab, the glitch, the revenge. Ramirez's skepticism cracked into intrigue. DARPA ties ran deep. And suddenly, I was wired for a polygraph. Shuttled to a black site consult. Meanwhile, the empire teetered. Board emails flooded in, Lydia spearheading a vote of no confidence. Chloe leaking affair texts to TMZ. Senator Hargrove ghosting calls. Richard's fortress, built on bluffs and blowjobs, crumbled under its own weight. From the safe house, unglamorous, all concrete and caffeine, I watched via hacked feeds as shareholders revolted, stock plunging 40% in after hours. Catharsis washed over me, bitter as black coffee, but hollow. I'd won, but at what cost? My body, my identity gone. And deeper, the secret he'd buried, the one that made this all click. It came in an encrypted file from the lab director, emailed post-interrogation, Hale's logs. Not just embezzlement, Richard had framed me because I was the threat. 5 years back, during my onboarding, I'd uncovered his first skim, a petty theft from a client's widow fund. Naive Ella had confronted him, tearful plea for mercy. He'd twisted it, promoted me to silence, then gaslit me into complicity. The crime I'd borne? It was his from the start. A mistake he'd made, pinned on me to protect his ascent. Betrayal's abyss yawned wider. I'd loved a phantom, built my life on sand. The climax hit in a midnight video call, routed through proxies. Richard's face, my face, filled the screen. Hollow-cheeked from jail slop, eyes wild.
Ella.
You did this. You crazy. Shut up, I growled, his voice booming from speakers. You made me your patsy. Triggered that clause to erase me. But karma's a bitch with a PhD in finance. He ranted,
Denying.
Bargaining. Promises of shared spoils if I recanted. Temptation flickered. Split the throne. Rule as twisted Siamese twins. Controversial as hell, co-conspirators in a body swap farce. But I saw the lie. He was mired in power. A black hole sucking light. No deal, I said. Enjoy the plea bargain. 20 years. Minimum. His scream cut off as agents burst in behind him. The call severed. Silence descended.
Profoas grave.
The twist landed then. Courtesy of Ramirez's debrief, the swap wasn't a glitch. Richard had rigged it, a failsafe in the tech, designed to offload blame onto test subjects like me if scandals brewed. He'd planned to recover post-trial, emerging the hero who'd exposed his own possession. The truth reversed. I wasn't the victim reborn. I was the pawn upgraded to queen. His scheme backfiring into my salvation. Or damnation. Months blurred. With federal protection, I rebuilt, not as Ella, but as Evan Hale, a rebranded consultant testifying against white-collar wolves. The trial was spectacle. Richard, in my body, crumbling on the stand, his lies unraveling like cheap thread. Chloe testified, Lydia too, their words a chorus of reckoning. He got 25 to life. Irony's full embrace.
Me?
I walked free, but haunted, nights plagued by phantom itches in my old skin. Echoes of a life unlived. Ending? Debatable. Happy. if you count justice served and empires toppled. Tragic. In the erasure of Elevos, the woman who deserved the dawn. I stand on a Brooklyn rooftop now, wind whipping a coat that's mine by fiat, gazing at the city that broke and remade me. Revenge was a clause I never forgot, one that triggered everything. And in the quiet, I wonder, was it worth the soul I lost? The skyline offers no answers. Just endless lights, winking like secrets yet untold.